Hello everyone, I'm Movie Master 222 and I'm here today to review Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's hard to believe that it's been almost 20 years since author J.K. Rowling introduced us to Harry Potter and the magical world he lives in. And while Harry Potter's saga ended almost 10 years ago, there are still many more stories of the Harry Potter world left to tell. One such story is that of Newt Scamander, played by Eddie Redmayne. Astute fans of the series will recognize the name Scamander as one of the authors of one of the textbooks that Harry Potter uses during his time at Hogwarts. As for Scamander's place in the movie itself, it takes place just when he's about to publish the book after a year-long tour studying magical creatures around the world. Aside from said name drop in previous books, Newt himself has never actually appeared in the series proper, making Fantastic Beasts his first formal appearance. In the movie, Newt attempts to safely transport his magical menagerie so that he may release one of his creatures back into its natural habitat in America. Before Newt himself is even introduced, we're shown through newspaper headlines that the 1920s magical world is a very turbulent time. Again, for those astute Harry Potter fans, Grimwald should be a familiar name. Grimwald is basically the Voldemort of the 1920s, a very powerful and enigmatic dark wizard who was on the run from magical authorities all over the world. What's especially interesting about Grimwald's history is the fact that he was supposedly a very dear friend of Albus Dumbledore. So as 4 more movies have been announced in this series, it's very possible we might see some of these introductions should either characters be formally introduced and not just name dropped. But it isn't just the threat of Voldemort 2.0 that the magical world faces in this movie. There's also the growing threat of the Muggles, or No-Majs as they're known in America in this movie, called the New Salemers, who are aware of the existence of magic and are desperately trying to prove their existence so that they might be exterminated, like the Salem witch trials of old. As the movie begins, the magical Congress that governs America is desperately trying to cover up a series of attacks seemingly by a magical creature from getting out and spreading fear across all of New York and revealing the existence of the magical community. These efforts become incredibly hindered as Newt goes to America and some of his creatures begin to escape from confinement. Faced with the looming threat of exposure, Newt desperately tries to recapture all of his creatures and prevent a war between the magical and no-magic communities. Now, I've grown up reading all the Harry Potter books and seeing all the Harry Potter movies, and while I wouldn't call myself a die-hard fan like some people would, I have always enjoyed the franchise. It's full of rich history and interesting characters and a great deal of world building. In fact, quite frankly, the only real weak link in the entire franchise is, in my opinion, Harry Potter himself. It's not that Harry Potter himself is a very bad character, it's just I've never been particularly interested in him. I myself have always much preferred the supporting characters in the franchise. Dumbledore, Voldemort, or Snape have always held more interest to me than the boy who lived. So I was particularly looking forward to this movie, if only to get away from the scope of The Boy Who Lived and get a real look at the world J.K. Rowling crafted. And in this regard, the movie does not disappoint. Newt and Harry Potter are like night and day. Whereas Harry Potter, once he found out that he was a wizard, became an outgoing, extroverted individual, Newt from the very get-go appears introverted and self-conscious. It's to actor Eddie Redmayne's credit that he's able to pull off such an introverted character quite well. Newt very rarely makes eye contact. He's always shuffling his feet. He's always trying to stay out of the limelight. He's very soft-spoken. To many, he'd almost look like a simpering coward. But it's when he deals with the magical beast that his true character shows. He mentions in the movie that he'd rather cut off his own arm than see one of his creatures come to harm, and throughout the movie we see evidence of this plainly. He goes through extraordinary efforts and breaks numerous laws in order to prevent his creatures from being harmed or killed by the magical community. That's about all I can reveal plot-wise without getting into a lot of spoilers. There are quite a few twists and turns throughout the story, and I'm going to leave it all to you to watch the movie to find out what they all are. If you're a fan of the series, then it's not even a question of if you're going to see this movie. It's only a matter of when you'll make the time to see it. Visually, the movie is as stunning as any of the other Harry Potter movies, and I mean that in a positive light. The 1920s production value is spot on. It's like I'm walking in New York during the 1920s with speakeasies, people wearing hats and fedoras, long coats, all the accents. But as would come as no great surprise, the real stunning visuals are the magical creatures themselves. Some of them are very obvious hodgepodges of creatures that exist in the real world, but then there are some that are just purely from the realms of imagination, and they are a delight to see. The movie was a thorough delight from beginning to end, and even had a few bittersweet moments there and in between. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie far more than I did most of the other Harry Potter movies, again because Newt Scamander and Eddie Redmayne is such a different character compared to Harry Potter and Daniel Radcliffe. We have 4 more movies potentially featuring the adventures of Newt Scamander, and if this first movie is any indication of what we're in store for, I have great hope for the future of this franchise. As far as whether you should shell out the extra money to see this in 3D or even go to theaters to see it at all, I personally could have waited to see this at home, but for those die-hard fans, again, it's not a question of if you're going to spend the money, but when you're going to get around to just spending it. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them should be out in theaters now, and if you go to see it, I hope you all enjoy the show. That's it for me. I'm Movie Master 222, and I'll see all of you next time.